it's something that I think everybody involved knew wasn't that good, but I do think that they enjoyed what they were doing and they knew that their audience was going to like it. Hi-ho, it's off to work we go, or I don't know. Anyway, it's time to sit down and put in those earbuds so as not to disturb the neighbors because this is Off Book, a show about Broadway, movies, TV shows, and so many other nerdy things. I'm Marc Stoufer III.
I'm Hailey Briggs. Today's episode is all about Disney Channel original movies, what makes them such cult classics, and what they look like in a land that's quickly transitioning to streaming.
I grew up on the Disney Channel, and I know that you did too, but Disney Channel original movies look pretty different than they used to, and I think they're only going to get more different as time goes on.
Yeah, it's definitely really interesting because I grew up in the tail end of everything of the 90s, I guess you could say. And so I grew up, I had VCRs growing up. I don't know if you had those. I had CDs, I had cassette tapes and everything. And so it was really interesting because when I was younger, I used to watch Disney movies on VCR, and then it slowly went into DVDs, which was fine because I grew up with both. But then when Disney came out with their streaming service, everyone was like,
oh my gosh, it's only $6 a month. This is so cool.
And now they don't have a need for VCRs or DVDs anymore.
Right. And I think that it's really interesting because these Disney Channel original movies, more than other movies that were made at the same time, seem to be such a product of the era. You can go back and watch something like High School Musical, and it's so clear that it's an early 2000s movie. And there were other movies that were made in that time frame that don't seem super dated yet, but for some reason, all of these movies do, and I don't know why.
One part of it for me is the clothing.
Yeah.
Looking back from what I wore back in 2010 till now, I know I'm 10 years older than I was, but looking at what 10-year-olds wear now and back when I was 10 is vastly different. And so it was the same thing for what they wore for high school and what was considered cool. Nowadays, wearing designer clothes and whatever else is considered cool, and then back then it was Abercrombie or something.
Yeah. I think that what's interesting about the Disney Channel original movies is that objectively most of them aren't that good, but for some reason we all love them so much. There were several moments in High School Musical when Zac Efron stared directly into the camera unintentionally, but somehow it's such a good movie, and it's so interesting to look at these films, and I don't really know what it is about them that makes them so perfect, despite how they are definitely not.
I was gonna say the plot lines are definitely all the same throughout. So High School Musical, there's they have issues, and then Lemonade Mouth, for example, they have issues. Well, it's fine, and then they have issues, and then they're fine again, or whatever else. But it's all the basis around of you're gonna have these issues when you're a teenager, and that's absolutely not the case.
Oh yeah. It's not at all a realistic portrayal of high school. I mean, not to mention that people don't just randomly break into song and dance in the cafeteria.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine? Upsetting. I would just feel so awkward. I'd be eating my lunch and all of a sudden someone starts breakdancing on my table or something. No thanks.
You would be involved too. You would also have the random choreography embedded into your brain somehow.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
I can see it now in our huge cafeteria that spent $4 million on.
It would be cool. I just need to convince people to, do it.
It can be a theater fundraiser. There's an idea for directors. Just have people spontaneously start dancing.
Yeah, for sure.
Another big Disney Channel movie was Camp Rock. I don't know if you watched Camp Rock, but I liked it better than High School Musical. Which one did you like better?
I liked High School Musical more, and I think it's just that I performed in the stage adaptation because I don't think I liked it before that as much. So I think I just nostalgic because I was in it. Even though my character wasn't actually in it, they added that character for the stage adaptation. But
I think honestly, doing the stage adaptation made me hate High School Musical more, just because.
That's fair.
I was a senior, so I did 3 other shows, and I was like, this is what we picked.
That's fair.
But I definitely was more of a Camp Rock person, mainly because I was in love with all 3 of the Jonas Brothers. And so I was like,
oh my gosh, they're on screen. I can go see them at the movies.
And and it had more of a plot line. Like
That's fair.
What was it, 2 or 3 movies they had weren't the same. Like I felt like the High School Musical movies were all the same.
Oh yeah. It was just like one of them is at a school and one of them is at a resort. That's
and the other one they're graduating.
Yeah.
And she's got to go her own way.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's the most melodramatic thing to ever happen to anyone.
And then doesn't she end up not going or something?
I think she leaves and then comes back because she realized that Troy was what was really important to her. I don't know.
Can you imagine like your parent letting you do that? Like, no.
Oh, no, for sure. I do think that the stage adaptation of High School Musical is very illuminating because they tried so hard to make a Disney Channel original movie into a legitimate plot, and it did not work. It's because the original movie is cheesy, and I think even at the time it was cheesy, but it knew that it was cheesy. I'm getting tired of saying the word cheesy, but it embraced it, so it was fine. And then in the move to the stage, for some reason, they decided to make this their love story like an actual thing, and
it was more dramatic.
You never know what you're gonna feel. Oh, you never see it coming, suddenly it's real. I can't take my eyes off of you. Oh, I know you feel the same way too.
Yeah, and it almost seemed to treat them like adults, which kind of takes the whole point of it out.
I was going to say, for background, Mark and I went to the same high school and we did High School Musical, and we were both in like there were different cliques, and we were both in the theater clique. And so we were definitely got to do like more backstage stuff because we were never included. For some reason, we were never included in a production about High School Musical, which is singing and dancing.
Hey, even in theater, the theater kids aren't important.
Never, ever.
It doesn't matter if it's a musical version of high school. It's high school. Theater kids don't matter.
And so it was definitely really interesting, because like growing up on High School Musical, I even literally, okay, this is embarrassing, but I had a pillow that was like Troy Bolton. It's signed by Troy Bolton, and it was pink, and it had like Zac Efron's face on it.
Why though? Why?
I think it came with a sleeping bag that also had Troy Bolton or Zac Efron's face on it.
You say that as if that's better. I'm not sure it is.
It was so bad.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So I was a big High School Musical fan, but then once Camp Rock came out, it was definitely Camp Rock more.
All right. Yeah, no, I think that it's something that I think everybody involved knew wasn't that good, but I do think that they enjoyed what they were doing, and they knew that their audience was going to like it, and so they just...
Well, it was theater.
Basically.
If we were all theater kids for the most part, and so it was like, how are we not supposed to enjoy this?
Right.
But it was just some aspects were so changed, and like we're not a high budget school, so we didn't have like massive props and everything, and
yeah.
But I don't think that dulled the experience. It was just like, I don't think it was definitely at full potential like it could have been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was definitely something lost in the translation to the stage, which should be expected. Also, there's also a stage adaptation of the rest of the High School Musical movies.
Except not High School Musical 3.
And I don't know why, because what school is just going to randomly do High School Musical 2 on stage? Like,
actually, I follow this account on Instagram, and I think I was reading underneath it, and I think someone said they were doing High School Musical 2 because they did High School Musical the year before.
But I think that's the only way that you can do it, is if all 2 years of your theater department, which is 2 out of the 4 for anybody that's going to that school, are High School Musical themed.
And
why would you do that?
And choosing musicals in high school can be so iffy because, like, first off, you have to do something appropriate.
Right.
Or you cut something, and that can leave story gaps. Or
right.
And you have to worry about, will the cast like it? Can we have a big cast, small cast, depending on your school size? So, like, for my senior year, we had a huge cast, but for your junior year, you guys had such a small cast for Into the Woods.
Right.
Yeah, no, I definitely with streaming, because like now it's fully accessed, they're not getting as much hype as they used to. Like, it's the younger generation experiencing the movies, and they're not interested. Yeah.
Well, and I think there was something to having a movie that was going to premiere on the Disney Channel for the first time. It was an event that you couldn't miss. And now they have a similar event with the Disney Plus launches, but it's at least it seems to me like it's not as much of an event because it's also going to be there at any time. Instead of if you don't watch it now, you have to wait 2 weeks for it to air again. It's just watch it tomorrow or watch it the next morning when you're not in bed.
You don't have to Google like the TV schedule or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely interesting.
Yes. And now it's time for an ad. Today's episode is sponsored by Impromptu Choreography Incorporated. If you have a musical that needs completely random, out-of-nowhere musical numbers that need to have full choreography, then you're going to need a choreographer that can choreograph in real time.
Isn't that impossible?
Normally, yes. But with Impromptu Choreography Incorporated, you can get a staff member on set to show everyone the choreography while the cameras are rolling through, I don't know, dark magic? Now, your logistical nightmare is just a dark magic nightmare.
I've heard that is better.
It is. Speaking of, modern Disney Channel original movies do seem to be a little bit different than their classic counterparts.
Yeah, definitely, like, they've gone into more, like, prominent issues, I guess. So, for example, I know this isn't technically a movie, but it's based off a movie. High School Musical, is it High School Musical, the musical, the series?
Yes, and now they're on High School Musical, the musical, the series, season 2, which...
Is it? But they're not doing High School Musical, are they?
No, it's Beauty and the Beast. They're doing Beauty and the Beast, but they can't call it Beauty and the Beast, the musical, whatever.
They could do High School Musical, the musical, Beauty and the Beast. I don't know.
Which is also season 2, but like, this is... You could find any name, and you went with the one that was boring, super long, and just describe what the show is. Alright, so boss, we have
a second season.
Yeah. And like,
see, this is why I don't want to watch it.
It was a good cast, and I don't mind them bringing it back for another season, but just call it something else. Or maybe don't build a premise. Like, I liked the idea of the high school putting on a High School Musical. That was a fun premise. But either don't make it for more than one season, or find a way to rebrand it after the first season, so it's not High School Musical, the series, the Beauty and the Beast, which is season 2, which is related but also not.
My point was,
oh yeah, I got it.
See, they're coming up with things like that, and it's on Disney Plus, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely, and they target issues of like social issues, right? Sometimes, and so they didn't really do that back then. Like back in 2007, that stuff was still taboo.
Yeah.
And it wasn't normal to talk to kids about it, but nowadays parents are like talking about kids like with like the whole Black Lives Matter stuff and like issues with the LGBTQ community. So they're definitely I noticed that they're incorporating that into more of like Disney stuff. Yeah. Which is awesome in my opinion.
They definitely seem to be making a push towards trying to tackle some of the issues that people are facing, which I think is if you're going to make movies that are aimed at kids, and if you're going to make movies that are aimed at kids, then tell stories that they need to hear.
If you look back at like Camp Rock in like High School Musical, Lemonade Mouth, Hillary, Lizzie McGuire, that's what it is, not Hillary Duff. I was gonna say I think that's who plays Lizzie McGuire. Yeah. They definitely like have straightforward like this is who's playing who, but then it's like nowadays it's like, oh, we have more diversity and being more inclusive, and so that's pretty cool in my opinion.
Yeah. I also think that from a storytelling perspective, the stories themselves have changed because I think that, at least in my opinion, the closest story to High School Musical, other than the show that shall not be named, is probably Descendants. That seems to be the big movie musical series that everyone likes, just in a similar way to High School Musical.
I have something to admit. I've never seen Descendants.
Rude.
I was actually in Europe when we found out that Cameron Boyce died, and that was very, very sad. He's a very good actor, and I heard he was very good in those movies.
He was fantastic.
But I've never seen him. Is there like 2 or 3?
Yeah, there's 3, and I guess there's like a spin-off cartoon that they're making. Yeah. I don't know how that's gonna work.
And there's a stage adaptation.
Yes, there was also a stage adaptation that is the plot of the first movie, but has music from all 3 of them kind of crammed in there. So it is just very disjointed. I read the libretto, and it was... If you're like Hailey and haven't seen Descendants, it follows the kids of Jafar, the Evil Queen...
Cruella.
Cruella de Vil and Maleficent, and their kids all end up that all of the villains are banished to this isle called the Isle of the Lost. But there is a school on the mainland, and the prince, who is the son of Belle and the Beast, is soon to be king, and his first official royal proclamation is that he's going to pick four villains' kids to come to the school as part of like a goodwill outreach program. And so they go and they realize that actually they're not that bad and their parents were just bad and we're trying to convince them to be bad. So you have a lot of these kind of be who you want to be and don't let society's expectations define you, which is a similar message to what High School Musical had, just in a very different format.
High School Musical just sang about everything and danced on tables and was freaking out about their love life at 17.
Basically. And Descendants does the exact same thing. And it even has the same, most of the musical numbers are not acknowledged to be music in the universe, but there are also some musical performances, and it's very similar. I think they're both directed by the same guy, but it does feel like a very modern version of High School Musical in terms of storytelling.
Yeah. I like that they do like the kids of the villains too, because I am very much like Disney like classics.
Mm-hmm.
So like that was the part that intrigued me. I just honestly haven't watched it. I'm assuming it's on Disney Plus. So
it is, yes. It's actually pretty good. I thought they did a great job in kind of reinventing these characters, because they have Cruella de Vil, Maleficent, Jafar. They have Hades in the third movie. They have Ursula. They have Captain Hook's son. I don't think we see Captain Hook, but I could be wrong.
I'm assuming like Cinderella's isn't it daughter?
There's Cinderella, there's Belle and the Beast,
She's
there's
like
a fairy
the Disney
godmother.
princess.
yeah. There are a lot of characters that are being played in this movie that they do a pretty good job with.
That's good. That's one thing that Disney does, is like if they're gonna do something, they typically do it well, and that shows in their movies and stuff.
Yeah.
I wish I read that they are getting rid of like 100 Disney shows or Nick shows or something, because everyone's moving to the streaming services.
Oh, right.
Like I personally have like Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Peacock, Paramount Plus, like all that stuff, and it's like you don't need to watch actual TV anymore.
Yeah. And I think that's very interesting, is with the introduction of all those services, you're starting to see a lot of people ask, okay, so why is Disney Channel still around? What are they going to do? And I think that some countries have already lost the channel, so I feel like pretty soon here we're going to see that channel disappear entirely, because there's so much that's just being replaced by Disney Plus originals.
I think in the UK they don't have Disney anymore on Disney Channel. Like they don't have a Disney Channel anymore.
Yeah.
That's going to be sad. That's like an end of an era right there.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that it has mostly been kind of replaced with the Disney Plus original. But again, you're losing that kind of cultural milestone of having those premiere times and having the ability to just pick a channel, and you don't know exactly what's on, but you pick the Disney Channel and there's something on. And I know that I started watching new shows because I was bored, and so that was often on in the background of my house while I'm doing whatever. And I'd be like, oh, this is a good movie. Or it would show Finding Nemo at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when there wasn't anything else to show. And that really doesn't happen when you have to pick what you want to see first.
I know, it's like now you can watch whatever you want instead of waiting like, oh, my show's on at this time. I don't know. Right. It makes me kind of sad, because it's like, I'm glad we're having technology developments, but at the same time, it's like, in 5 years, are we even going to have like satellite TV? Well, I'm sure we will, but for me, for a college kid that goes back and forth, it's such an easy way to like start watching my stuff. So I would go off when I was in my dorm and I'd watch like something on Hulu, and I could just come home and finish it.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely a lot easier to use, but it does bring a lot of questions about, the release. WandaVision, which isn't a Disney Channel production, clearly, but they got a lot of fans mad because they released episodes weekly instead of all at once. And so the suspense there, trying to figure out what was going to happen next, was a big deal. And High School Musical, the series, and I guess now season 2, also do that, where they release them weekly, which I think tries to mirror the TV release schedule.
Which I like, because then you can pace yourself, because knowing me, like I'm watching House, which is like a med drama right now, and I'm just like banging the episodes out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Not good for you. Don't do that, kids.
Yeah, it's interesting because you have this one camp that says that we should release all of the episodes at once because we can watch everything else. Why shouldn't we be able to just watch all the episodes when we want to? But on the other hand, you also have that kind of traditional structure and that kind of cultural event that I think goes away if you can just watch them all at once and you don't have to wait from week to week. If the new Disney Plus show lasts for a day instead of 8 weeks or however long the season is, I think you lose part of that experience, which is part of what you're
Yeah.
finding now.
Well, because like WandaVision and stuff, like that had a lot of suspenseful things apparently, and so
Hmm.
it gives that like it makes you come back.
Right. And I do think that the Disney Plus originals that are kind of taking the place of the Disney Channel original movies seem to be, I don't want to say less cringy, because it's not that the original movies were cringy, but, they kind of were. And I think that you're not finding that as much because High School Musical, the musical, the series, does understand that it is a mockumentary, which is a sequel to a movie that was made like 20 years ago, and it's all very quirky, but it does so in a way that seems it's a movie that, or it's a series that I think adults can also watch, which isn't something that I don't that could be said for all of the Disney Channel original movies. It was definitely very much made for the kids, and the adults might like some of them, but I think you're finding more content that can be watched by everybody, which I think is a fundamental shift in the way these movies are being made.
Well, and it's like, yeah, exactly. So my mom wasn't a big fan of like anything like High School Musical, Camp Rock, not really. But I feel like High School Musical the series, she'd probably watch.
Mm,
So I definitely
yeah,
think they're trying to make it for like all ages now instead of just like 10 to 13-year olds.
yeah, yeah. I think that the audience of the Disney Channel or what it's becoming has just changed, which is interesting to say the least.
I was gonna say it's definitely like with all the streaming services and like during COVID, they were like, okay, we're gonna get these movies out during the streaming services, but also if you want early access per se,
Hmm.
you have to pay like $30. It's called Premier Access, I think, on Disney
Right.
Plus. And so it's like, is it really worth it? Because if you were watching this on television, you wouldn't have to pay for it. But now, if you want to watch it when it comes out, you have to pay $30 for it.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I think that in addition, the Disney Channel original movies and the new Disney Channel type releases are being put in the same spot as all of the the Mandalorian and all the Marvel movies and movies that are rated PG-13. And there are kids profiles that can filter that. But I think that there is something to be said about the fact that you have access to pretty much anything you want whenever you want, which is really cool. But also, I do think changes how it just needs to be made. I think that it needs to be a different kind of programming because it isn't 10 to, it's like you were saying, it isn't just 10 to 13-year-olds that are watching it during the summer when they have nothing else to do. It's anybody can watch it at any time, however often they want to, which I think means it needs to stand up to more repeat viewings and it needs to have a wider audience.
Right. I know. It's definitely like 50-50 for me about like the whole Disney classics versus like Disney Plus stuff because like I said, I grew up watching them on TV and so now it's like it makes me feel old, I guess. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
only
yeah,
20.
exactly.
So I wonder if
Yeah,
this is how people felt when like we went from like cassette tapes to CDs.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it does seem like it's a similar thing though, where the idea of a channel that just always runs Disney stuff is kind of ending, and it's gonna be a different landscape in terms of what gets made now.
Agreed. It's weird. Like when we have kids, it's probably going to be completely different.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. We're gonna be like, back in our day, we had a Disney Channel, and they showed movies all day. I watched Finding Nemo at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I had to wait 4 weeks to see the High School Musical too. Hmm.
It's going to be like our parents telling us they had to walk in the snow to school. We're going to be like, we had to watch this on TV. We had to wait.
We had to wait 4 weeks if we missed it the first time. Ugh. It's quite the change in the landscape for sure.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely odd.
And now it's off to work we go, or whatever you're doing before this.
next week's episode is going to be all about award shows, the good, the bad, and the everything in between. Until next time, see you later.